It's 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night in Tokyo. You've already worked 10 hours, your feet hurt, you're exhausted, and you just want to go home. But your boss is standing at your desk asking if you're coming to tonight's drinking party. Everyone's watching, waiting to see what you'll say. What do? For millions of Japanese workers over the past 70 years, there was only one answer, and that answer has quietly destroyed careers, relationships, and lives.
The month before, then there's Matsuri Takahashi, the 24-year-old who took her own life on Christmas Day 2015.
This is the story of Nomikai culture, and it's way darker than anyone wants to admit. Let's go back to the beginning. After World War II, Japan was rebuilding from scratch. The economy was taking off, companies were growing fast, and a new culture started forming around how people worked together. Nomikai literally translates to drinking gathering. Nomi means drink, kai means meeting. Simple enough, right? Friends grabbing drinks after work. Except these weren't friendly hangouts. These were extensions of the office. During the 1950s and 60s, something shifted. These drinking sessions became the place where real business happened. The rigid hierarchy of Japanese offices would loosen up. Junior employees could actually talk to their bosses. People would share ideas they'd never say in a meeting, and relationships got built over beer and sake. It seemed harmless, maybe even helpful. But then came the economic boom. The 1970s, 80s, and into the 90s. This was the golden age of Nomikai, but at the same time, the darkest time for Japan. But before we get to the peak of Nomikai culture, we need to understand why it got so out of control in the first place. Because this wasn't random. This was baked into the entire structure of how Japanese society works. Let's talk about something called wa. It means harmony. And in Japan, harmony isn't just a nice idea, it's the whole point. Japanese culture is collectivist to its core. From the time you're a kid, you're taught that the group comes before you. Your identity isn't about being an individual, it's about being part of something bigger. In the West, people say things like, be yourself, or follow your dreams. In Japan, that kind of thinking has traditionally been seen as selfish. The word for individualism in Japanese, kojin shugi, actually has negative connotations. It suggests you're putting yourself above everyone else, that you're not a team player. Your company literally becomes your identity. When Japanese people introduce themselves, they don't just say their name, they say their company name first. I'm Tanaka from Mitsubishi. The company badge isn't just something you wear, it's who you are. This ties directly into two other systems that dominated Japanese employment: lifetime employment and the seniority system, called Nenko Joretsu.
They could trust company because company can keep you whole life. The employee had to die for the company.
Here's how it worked. You graduate from university, you get hired by a company, and if you're lucky enough to be a regular employee, that company is supposed to be your home for the next 40 years. You don't job hop, you don't chase better opportunities, you stay. You dedicate yourself, and in return, the company takes care of you. Your salary goes up automatically based on how long you've been there, not how well you perform. Same thing with promotions. It's based on your age and years of service. A 25-year-old genius can't leapfrog a 45-year-old mediocre employee. That would destroy the harmony. Your self-worth literally comes from your place in these social structures. It's not about how you feel about yourself. It's about where you stand in the eyes of others. Your position in the company, your seniority, your contribution to the group. This is where Nomikai becomes absolutely crucial. In a society where you can't directly criticize your boss, where speaking your mind in a meeting is considered disrespectful, where the hierarchy is everything, how do you actually communicate? How do you build the relationships you need to navigate this system? Alcohol. When everyone's drunk, the hierarchy loosens. A junior employee can pour sake for his boss and actually have a conversation. Ideas that would never come up in a meeting get discussed. Relationships that determine your entire career get built over beer and grilled chicken.
I would have to go with my clients and we would have to go to drinking parties.
And there's also this thing called Nijikai, like after the first dinner, you have to go to like a second Nomikai and then a third Nomikai.
Even if you don't like it, you had to drink with your boss.
You have no choice, you have to be there.
And if you didn't participate, you were shutting yourself out. You were saying you didn't value the group. You weren't building the social capital you needed to survive in a lifetime employment system where changing jobs meant starting over at the bottom somewhere else. The system was literally designed to trap you. Your company became your family. Your co-workers became the most important people in your life. And Nomikai was how you proved your loyalty to that family. How you showed you were willing to sacrifice your personal time, your health, your actual family at home, all for the group. This wasn't just about drinking. It was about your total dedication, about proving you would do anything for the company. Because in a culture where your identity and self-worth come from your position in the social hierarchy, failing at your company meant failing at life itself. That's why people couldn't say no. That's why the pressure was so intense. Because refusing Nomikai wasn't just declining drinks, it was rejecting the entire system that gave your life meaning. The 1980s in Japan's economy was absolutely booming. We're talking about an economy so hot that the land under the Imperial Palace in Tokyo was supposedly worth more than all of California. Japanese businessmen were buying up Rockefeller Center, Pebble Beach, entire chunks of Hawaii. Money was everywhere. And so was Nomikai. Picture the stereotypical Japanese salaryman of this era. Dark suit, loosened tie, stumbling through Shinjuku at 2 a.m. after the third bar of the night. This was reality for millions of workers. Here's what a typical night looked like. First, there was the Ichi-jikai, or the first party. This was official, organized by the company, usually at an izakaya, which is basically a Japanese pub. This part was expected. But then came the Ni-jikai, the second round. Different bar, smaller group, more alcohol, looser conversations. And some nights, there was a San-jikai, a third round. Ramen at 3 a.m., missing the last train home, sleeping at the station or a capsule hotel. This was the ultimate showcase of loyalty. And if you wanted to get ahead, you had to prove you could hang, not just at your desk, but at the bar too. Businessmen would brag about spending $30,000 in a single night. Companies had massive entertainment budgets. The whole system basically ran on alcohol. Nomikai wasn't just about bonding, it was a tool, a way to evaluate employees outside the formal review process. Managers would watch how you interacted with others, whether you were a team player, how well you related to your superiors. Your career could live or die based on how you handled yourself at a drinking party. For women, it was even worse. In a workplace already dominated by men, Nomikai culture created another barrier. Young mothers couldn't stay out until midnight drinking. Women who didn't want to drink faced pressure and mockery.
人にお酒飲むことを強要する、飲みたくないのにで会社でとかあると思います。
それを強要するならそれこそアルハラっていう言葉が出てるんですよ。そうだから世代やんきっと。
Sexual harassment was common, brushed off as just having fun, or blamed on the alcohol. Many women were shut out of important conversations and promotions simply because they couldn't or wouldn't participate in this after-hours drinking culture. One executive at Mitsubishi UFJ Bank finally said it out loud. Nomikai penalizes parents of young children, especially working women.
Overwork in Japan is a real problem and a deadly one at that. There is even a Japanese word for it, karoshi, meaning death from overwork.
In 2015, a 24-year-old woman named Matsuri Takahashi jumped from her company dormitory.
2015年12月25日クリスマスの朝祭りはわずか24歳の人生を閉じました。
She worked at Dentsu, Japan's biggest advertising agency. The investigation revealed she'd been working over 130 hours of overtime per month and facing constant harassment from supervisors. She was told to hide her working hours, to report less than 70 hours of overtime, even when she was working way more.
なぜ人手不足になるのか、長時間労働になるのか。
This wasn't just about long hours at the office. The culture of mandatory nomikai, of sacrificing your evenings and your health for the company, was part of the same system that pushed her over the edge. Her story broke open a national conversation about karoshi, death from overwork, and kuroji satsu, suicide from work-related stress. In 2024 alone, Japan recognized over 1,300 cases of work-related deaths and disorders. Mental health issues now account for the majority of these claims, including 88 suicides or attempts. And here's the connection nobody wants to make. Nomikai was part of this. Those mandatory drinking sessions weren't innocent team building. They were unpaid overtime. They were pressure. They were taking hours away from sleep, from family, from any kind of normal life. The older generation of salarymen became alcoholics. They developed serious health problems from years of binge drinking multiple nights a week.
Drinking too much is one of the big reasons why they're so stressed.
Now, a journalist in Japan died after working overtime for 159 hours in a month. The Miwo Sado, a political journalist with the country's national broadcaster, suffered a heart failure.
Something started changing in the 2000s and 2010s. The government introduced work-style reform initiatives, trying to limit overtime and protect personal time.
これまでのように人が制度に合わせるのではなく、これからは人の生き方に制度を合わせる。
確保し、誰もが働きやすい環境を整えてまいります。
People started talking about work-life balance. Health awareness increased. The Ministry of Health even published guidelines in 2024, showing that just one 500 milliliter beer increases your risk of colorectal cancer. A new term emerged, nomihara, nomikai harassment, pressuring someone to drink, forcing attendance, mocking people who chose non-alcoholic options. What was once considered training or character building was now being called what it actually was, harassment. Surveys showed that almost 80% of workers considered it harassment if a boss criticized them for not attending drinking parties or not pouring drinks for others. Half thought it was harassment if someone ordered them a beer without asking. But the biggest shift came from an unexpected place: young people. The stereotype was that millennials and Gen Z workers were killing nomikai culture because they didn't want to drink or socialize. But the data tells a different story. In 2024, 69% of workers in their 20s said they'd like to attend a year-end party. That's way higher than workers in their 40s at 52% or 50s at 40%. Young workers, especially those who started their careers during COVID, actually wanted to attend. Not for the alcohol, but to finally meet their colleagues face to face, to build real relationships. The people most tired of nomikai, middle-aged managers, the ones who'd lived through the worst of it, who'd sacrificed their youth to this system and now had to worry about harassment lawsuits, about saying the wrong thing when drunk, about forcing their employees to do what they'd been forced to do.
Another record high number of COVID cases in Japan.
Tokyo saw nearly 39,000 cases, while Osaka recorded 24,000.
Nomikai stopped completely, banned, illegal under emergency declarations.
As the government prepares for a state of emergency when all alcoholic beverage sales will be banned for 6 weeks.
Police in Tokyo have been ensuring the streets of the Japanese capital remain quiet. This was the first weekend since the government declared a state of emergency.
For the first time in 70 years, Japanese workers got their evenings back. And something interesting happened. People realized they didn't actually need it. Some companies tried online nomikai, drinking parties over Zoom.
Japanese government urged people to stay at home to curb virus transmission. This virtual service, called Stacknom, translates to drink at home.
It was awkward as hell, and nobody liked it. But it also proves something. If the only way you can communicate with your coworkers is by getting drunk together, maybe the problem isn't the lack of drinking. Maybe the problem is your entire workplace culture. When restrictions lifted, Nomikai didn't come roaring back. By the end of 2024, only 60% of companies held year-end parties, down from 78% before COVID. Some of the reasons companies gave? Low employee interest, and people got used to not having these events. Workers had tasted freedom, and a lot of them weren't interested in going back. So where does Nomikai culture stand today? It's not dead. In 2025, about 60% of workplaces still hold some kind of drinking event, but the nature of these gatherings has changed dramatically. They're shorter, they're optional. More people drink non-alcoholic beers or soft drinks. Some companies moved gatherings to lunchtime instead of after work. Others banned drinking parties past 10 p.m. The attendance rate for those who do go is actually pretty high, about 88%. But here's the key difference. People are choosing to attend because they want to, not because they're afraid of what happens if they don't. Multiple surveys show that 60 to 70% of workers across all age groups now consider Nomikai unnecessary for business. That's not just young people, that's everyone. The consensus has shifted.
But you know, it is surprising to see this in Japan where the drinking culture is so prevalent. But perhaps all these millennials have also seen their families and their parents go out every single night and not come home. And maybe that's why this is the new change.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
But here's where it gets complicated. While the worst aspects of Nomikai culture are fading, some people are worried about what gets lost. Those informal conversations where juniors could actually talk to seniors, where mentorship happened organically, where you learn things that never came up in official meetings. When everything becomes formal and scheduled, when people only interact through email and Zoom, do you lose something valuable? Maybe, but you know what you also lose? Alcoholism, harassment, unpaid overtime, broken families, deaths from overwork. The real question isn't whether Nomikai had some positive aspects. The question is, was any of it worth the cost?